Hello Year 9 and welcome to your next geography lesson. We're starting a new topic today, moving away from tropical rainforests and ecosystems and focusing very much on a human geography topic now. So to begin with, I'd like you to watch the video linked on the screen, and as you watch it, I'd like you to write down 5 facts that you learn throughout. You will definitely need to pause it as you go and probably rewind parts. That's absolutely fine. Pause the video now. Okay, so here's a range of facts that I've pulled out. If you've got something slightly different, as long as it's from the video, that's absolutely fine. But generally, what's the theme here? Well, back from 1800, where all countries were sick and poor, where very few people in the world lived beyond the age of 40. We then had the Industrial Revolution, starting predominantly at the beginning in European countries and some of the other more developed countries of the world. The impact of the world wars, and the fact that as we've moved through time all the way through to, in the video, 2009, the most up-to-date in the video statistics, most people now live in that middle area. Most people have middle incomes and are living relatively longish lives. However, there is still a large difference between the richest and the poorest. Most people, though, do live in the middle. So there isn't, when you look at people and the number of people in the world, there isn't a huge difference, but there certainly are still some people who are living in very poor countries and living very short lives. And generally, as a theme, as countries get richer, people live longer. I'm not sure that's particularly surprising, but that the evidence there definitely shows that. And here you can see the most up-to-date statistics now, 2019, and the picture is not hugely different from the 2009 ending of that video. You've still got most people of the world. Remember, the size of the circle there shows you how many people are living there. Most of that, the area there of circles, is in the middle. An increasing amount of it is up towards the top. And there are still, however, though, some very, very poor countries. For example, the Central African Republic, Somalia, some of those blue countries on the far, far left of that graph. Life expectancy, if you'll notice, doesn't get below over 50 anywhere in the world. Now, to you and me, 50 probably sounds terrible, but it's much better than it was. So there is an improvement, but still lots of work to be done. Lots of work to be done getting all those countries, and I'm sure you would agree with me that we all want all of those countries, and more specifically those people, those human beings living in all of those countries where life expectancy is low and where income is low. We want all of those to move up. So the name of this topic is the development gap. That graph showed you firsthand the development gap, the fact that there are some countries at the very top end and some at the bottom, and the gap between them, that's what we mean here by the development gap. So I would start a brand new page here, and at the very top of it, I would put this as a title for this whole topic. Pause the video now to do that. Okay, excellent. And lesson number 1 in the development gap is looking at what development is, what do we mean when we say that, and how do we measure it? You've already come across in that video and in that task, in that graph, 2 ways of measuring it. How long people live for, what we call the life expectancy, and the amount of money a country makes, which we will call GNI. We'll come to those 2 terms in a minute. They should be familiar to you. You've come across them before, but we will be going through them again just to make sure you know what they mean. So leave a line under the development gap title. Put this as a lesson title. Don't forget the date as well. Make sure you've got all the equipment. Give the objectives a quick skim through. Pause the video now to do that. Okay, so let's start by defining development. I'm going to show you a few key terms. We're going to show you the parts of the definition first and then put them all together. So my task for you is to copy the keywords down and draw a small image to help you remember what the keyword means. So that's what you'll need your pencil for. The screen will have some useful help for you. So let's go to the first one. Economic growth. So you need to copy that down, that definition. When a country makes more money on the screen, hopefully that's quite a useful little way of showing it. It's just simply more money. It's not a difficult concept to draw. You can use mine. You can come up with your own way of drawing it. Pause the video now and do that. Next one, technology, machinery developed from science, usually used to help people to do something for us. Copy that down and some form of picture to go with that. And the final of the three little bits here, human welfare, the quality of human life. Summarized there very simply with a nice, happy smile. That is a high quality. That is someone with good human welfare. An unhappy face might be someone with a low quality, with low human welfare. So copy that down and draw a picture. Pause the video now. Excellent. So let's put it all together. What does development mean? Well, it's the progress of a country in terms of those three terms: economic growth, technology, and human welfare. Now, my picture here, you can see I've tried to illustrate this by showing a graph and the fact that we start at the bottom there with an unhappy person. And as the graph rises, it's getting up, it's progressing, it's improving. At the very top end there, we've got happy people, good human welfare, we've got technology, and we've got economic growth. We've got more money. So hopefully that gets across that idea. You can absolutely copy my idea there if you want, or come up with your own to show that. So copy it down, draw the picture, pause the video now. Excellent. So development really, if you put it simple, just means a country getting better. It's improving, and it's improving in many, many different ways, because those three terms there, those lead to many, many, many other things. Okay, so there are many ways of measuring development, how developed a country is. On the screen, you can see a number of them as key terms. You've come across pretty much all of these words before in previous topics and previous years in geography, but let's just make sure that we understand them, because these are the basics. These are the ones that we need to know. So my task for you is to get the knowledge organizer that's attached to this lesson, find the definitions for all of those. And for terms C to G, because they're really the core measures, would it be high or low in a more developed country? Would you expect the quality of life to be high, or would you expect it to be low? Over to you. Jot those answers down. I'll go through them in a minute. Pause the video now. Okay, so quality of life would definitely be high. The well-being of people, their general well-being, if their lives are good, they've got a high quality of life. D, standard of living, the wealth that people have, definitely should be high. Poorer countries are much less likely to be able to afford things to make people's lives better. Quality of life is about more than standard of living. Standard of living is just about money and wealth, whereas quality of life is about other things like health care, like education. But all of those things cost money, so standard of living is also important. Gross national income per person. This is a measure of the economy, how much money the country as a whole is making. Now, just because the GNI per person is high doesn't necessarily mean that the people's quality of lives will be good. There are some examples of countries in the world where most of that money goes to a very select few people, or where corrupt governments or ineffective governments aren't really able to use that money. F, birth rate. This should be low. It's probably the trickiest one here. You've got it wrong, correct your answer. Birth rate will be low. Generally, the more developed countries of the world, people have fewer children. Their children are surviving, so they don't need to have lots of children. They don't need children to work and to help out and to look after them when they're older, and many other reasons why birth rate might be high. They might be better educated as well in family planning, not needing to have loads and loads of children. There are other ways. And finally, G, life expectancy should be high. People should be living longer lives. Remember, back in 1810, most people in the world not even making their 40th birthday. Terrible situation. Today, most people, thankfully, all people above 50, thankfully, but most people significantly higher than that today. So yeah, there we go. There are different ways of measuring development. Now, there are many, many, many others, but these are some of the key ones. These are some of the most important ones that we look at. So measures of development are important as they give us an idea of how a country is getting on. Each measure is caused by something, and we call those factors. Factors affecting development. Let's have a look at some now. Little task for you here, little kind of homework task. What factors affect the quality of life of your family and who you are living with? There's a task there on the screen. Mr. Beeson's email's on there because he's the one that put this slide together, and this is going out to some of his classes as well. But if you're in my class, just replace that with L. Dixon and send them in. And yeah, achievement points coming for good answers and good ideas. Let's move on. Okay, so factors affecting these different measures of development. There are 5 on the board. We're going to look at those in a bit more detail in a minute, but first thing to do, could you just jot those down as key terms and definitions, just so that they're there in your book so you understand what they mean. I don't believe I need to add anything to those definitions. Over to you. Pause the video now. Okay, fantastic. So here we go. I've got two factors for specific factors for each of these categories. We've got environmental, social, economic, and political factors. Any of those terms I thought that you might not understand, I put on the last slide and you've just written down. My task for you is to explain how any two of those, and pick two from different categories. So maybe you're going to pick climate as an environmental factor, and then you're going to pick a stable government from political factors. Or you're going to pick education from social factors, but then you're not going to pick access to safe water because that's also social. You're going to pick trade because it's economic. There's only one that you can't pick, which is going to be natural hazards, and that's because I'm going to use that as an example for you in just a second. So at the bottom there in purple is a sentence starter. Trade affects people's quality of life. Debt affects people's quality of life. Education affects people's quality of life, etc., etc. Because, and that's where you write. Now, I'm going to flick to the next slide. I can't go back on slides, unfortunately. So you're going to need in a minute, once I've gone through the model answer, to come back to this slide, just rewind the video a little bit and pause on here to remind you of what to do here. You can kind of flip between the two slides if you need to. So here's my model answer for natural hazards. Natural hazards affect people's quality of life because they can destroy homes, which means that people are made homeless. Homeless people are likely to have poorer health and therefore a lower life expectancy. Notice what I've done there. I've taken the simple answer. You could have just written because they can destroy homes, full stop. But come on, we're Year 9 students. That's far too basic. That's far too easy. We're going to try and explain it in a little bit more detail. I've then elaborated that and said which means, using that connective which, that people are made homeless. Again, I could have just stopped there, but I haven't. I'm now trying to link this, and I'd like you to do the same, to the measures of development. In bold there, homeless people are likely to have poorer health and therefore a lower life expectancy. I want you to include at least one measure of development in your answer. I've then gone on. I've given one reason why they affect people's quality of life. I'd then like you to do another one. Businesses can also be destroyed, which, if on a large scale, can lead to high unemployment and a reduction in the GNI of a country. Less jobs, less people making money, so the GNI goes down. Obviously, if just one or two businesses get destroyed, the GNI of a country is going to be unaffected, really. But if it's on a large scale, if it's whole cities, whole areas, whole regions being destroyed, let's say flooding in a tsunami, something pretty devastating like that, it could have a huge effect on the whole country. But then again, I've not just stopped there. I'm explaining. This means that the government have less tax money to spend developing their country. Again, linking it back to development. GNI, tax, developing countries. There's all the different ways I've linked that to development there. Okay, so first thing I'd like you to do is to copy that model paragraph down. And then you know you've got a really, really well explained, really developed answer in your book. And then you're going to pick two other categories. You can use climate from environmental factors, that's fine. But then you're going to pick one other from another category. So two other categories, two other factors, sorry. I'd like you to attempt to write in that level of detail. I want to see specific measures of development. Don't forget, you can go back to the last slide if you want to use that sentence starter. This is going to take a little bit of time, and this is definitely a task that you can email to your teacher, because this is the kind of task where you can really show off some great writing skills, and we can definitely award some achievement points for. It's going to take you 10 minutes at the very least, if not 15, if not 20 if you're a bit of a slow writer, but that's fine. Make this count, put some time into this task. You can pause the video now. Right, fantastic, good job. Hopefully a good bit of writing done there, a good bit of thinking, a good bit of linking those factors back to those measures of development. Right, on the screen we've got not a graph now but a map. We're looking at where development is occurring in the world. Now if you go back to the video and go back to those graphs, Hans did mention in that video that the different colours of the circles were for different regions of the world and for different countries. Not the clearest. This makes it very, very, very clear. So if we look at the key, In red, in the reddest of reds, you've got high income countries. In the pinks, upper middle. In the light blue, lower middle. And in the dark blue, low income countries. Anything that's grey, there's no data for. And there are a couple of grey countries here and there. Not too many, thankfully, but there are a few. But we're going to ignore those. Those don't matter to us right now. You're going to use this map to copy and complete the paragraph on the next slide. So once again, this map is a bit bigger. Hopefully you'll be able to see this a bit clearer. For this one, you can pause the video, go backwards and forwards between this and the next slide if you need to. I have put this map on the next slide, but it's a bit small. It's a bit small, certainly for the country names. If you can't read the country names on there, get yourself an atlas, get yourself a Google Maps open, and you can use that to find them, or a map of the world. Go into Google Images, type world map, and you'll get loads of different versions that you can zoom into and read. So what's the point of this paragraph? Well, it's describing how income varies around the world, looking for patterns, and there are definitely some patterns. So let's move on to the next slide. You can come back to this one yourself by rewinding, and let's look at what I'm asking you to write. So here we go. The continent with the most high income countries is what? For example, the countries what and what. Now there's multiple countries there. There's only one answer to the continent, but there's multiple answers for the countries. And the same goes for the third bullet point as well. Where the lower higher is, you select the correct answer. You just write the correct answer. Again, the exception on that, the country that doesn't fit that pattern, there are 3 or 4 different countries you could pick from to put there. In fact, maybe even slightly more than that, maybe 5 or 6. Okay, so copy and complete those sentences using the map. Don't forget you can rewind to go to the bigger map on the page before. And if you can't read the country names, you can certainly use the internet or an atlas to find those out yourself. Pause the video now, and answers coming up in just a second. Okay, so here's the answers. You'll notice a few of the boxes are still blank. They're the ones where, well, there's so many different answers. I mean, I can't go through them all. I'm going to have to trust that you've got the right idea. So the continent with the most high income countries is Europe. It is not North America. North America, there are actually only really 3 countries. There's the United States, there's Canada, and then there's Greenland if you count it as part of Denmark. Although Greenland itself, if you just looked at that, would certainly not be a high income country. There's not enough money being made there really. So there we go. Europe, however, you've got many more countries there which are high income countries. So there we go. Any of them, you could use the UK, Ireland, France, Germany, Spain, Portugal, Italy, Sweden, Finland, Denmark, Norway, then the list goes on. Norway is probably actually the richest as well. Second one, the 2 other continents with mostly high income countries are, here's North America and Oceania. Australasia's fine as well if you put that. You've got Australia and New Zealand down there. Although, if you look at number of countries there, certainly if you look at all the islands, that doesn't really count. However, most people certainly are living in Australia and New Zealand compared to those other countries. The continent with the most low-income countries is definitely Africa. You'll notice there's actually only 3, maybe, low-income countries, 3 or 4 elsewhere in the world. But in Africa, there is a whole handful of them. And again, countries, Mali, Niger, Chad, Democratic Republic of the Congo, Somalia, Ethiopia, Zimbabwe, Madagascar, the list goes on. The closer to the equator a country is, the lower income it tends to be. Note all those low income countries, they're all clustered in that Central African region. Even most of the middle income or lower middle income countries of the world, most, not all, most tend to be clustered around the equator. Although the country what is an exception to this, well, the biggest one is Saudi Arabia. You've got a few of the others, United Arab Emirates, a few other countries around that Middle Eastern Arabian Peninsula area. So there we go. That's the spatial. What we mean by that is, where in the world things are, element of development as well. Definitely some patterns to be found when we look at that. So in this lesson, we've looked at what development is, how to measure it, and where in the world is more or less developed. For the rest of this topic, we're going to be pursuing this further. We're going to be looking into more detail into the causes of development and the effects of it, and so on and so on. Thank you very much, and see you very soon. Take care.